Good morning, everyone. How are you guys? Whew, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. It's Monday morning. We are back to our regularly scheduled topics, and today we're going to do our recap of last night's episode on of Sister Wives, and then I'll be doing just regular streams about the normal topics that we cover. If you've noticed some sort of differences on the weekends, I'm doing a little bit more, I'm doing some content that's a little bit more like get to know me kind of personal stuff, because a lot of my subscribers have told me that they really enjoy those kinds of streams. So because I don't have an overall ton of time on the weekends to do a lot of research, and it's just easier for me to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing, let's talk kind of thing. That's what I'll be doing on the weekends versus like regular streams for the most part. Except last night, there was the latest episode of Sister Wives, which had a lot of stuff going on, and I thought we could talk through it. It was an episode that had a really interesting title, given the fact that the majority of of last night's episode related more to the wives and their relationships with Kody than it did to anything else. And we can just dive right in. So in the episode, the ladies, actually, we start out and they are in Chicago and they are there to visit Mariah and Audrey. Now, it's funny because while they're walking down the street in Chicago, they're talking about how like they like the architecture, they like how all the buildings are kind of different, which I would assume is rather different. The architecture in the Midwest is different than what you would find down in like the Southwest in like Arizona. And they are saying how much they enjoy being together as a foursome, and it gives them time to sort of connect and not have to deal with all the stuff that's going on at home. They don't have a factor in between all of them that can sometimes cause some of them to be, unwilling to sort of be open about stuff. So overall, the tone for this episode sees the Sister Wives relatively happy, and you see sort of, a collective sigh of relief. It's clear in this episode that they're all extremely happy to see Mariah, and they're definitely happy to see Audrey. While they are in Chicago, they go out for lunch, and while they're at lunch, they're ordering their food, and it's kind of at this like divey place that has like writing all over the walls. It looks like sort of like a trendy pizza joint, and they start talking about what's going on with buying houses or moving. Robin's got a house that she has to move into because the rental that she was in actually sold, and then Mary also has to move, and they talk about sort of all of the issues going around that. She says that Kody really, Robin says that Kody really wants to move and that she does not want to move, or Kody really wants to buy and she does not want to buy. In fact, she says that she would wants to still find a rental, although they are sort of short on time. She says that Mary says that she can tell that Robin and Kody are at a place right now where they are sort of at an impasse and things are getting sort of tense. And Robin actually admits to all of them that they are having, very tense discussions almost every single day about what they're going to do with this house. Janelle is actually sort of taken back because she says that Robin would typically never discuss any sort of topics like this in front of them. So in order for her to actually bring it up to the rest of them, it must be something very significant and serious. Christine actually does say that buying or renting, she supports whatever they choose. She explains that she bought a house, and while she understands it might sort of make things a little bit more challenging for them to build out on Coyote Pass, it was still a good decision for her family. So she says whatever they want to do is up to them. She actually talks a lot, Robin actually talks a lot about the stress of having to move, pack things up, take pictures off walls, have her children move from, different homes, potentially having to change schools. That, I mean, is definitely a challenge when you have younger kids. The rest of the wives don't have the super young kids. So I do think that is definitely a factor. And let's see, the interesting thing too is that while they're at this lunch, they talk about specifically, it's just the four of them. They haven't actually seen Mariah at this point. They haven't talked to anyone at this point. They are just together. And Janelle says to them, no matter what happens with everything that's going on, whether with our families and everything, like, we are a core unit. It's the four of us that matters. We are the ones that are together. These are the people that I want to be with. And it's interesting because they don't discuss Kody in that respect. They say, like, we are the unit. I love you. And then Christine says, no matter what happens, the ebb and flow in these relationships really doesn't matter in the long run. Like, you get along with one person one day, not another. I mean, it's part of it sounds very familiar, like family, like family relationships. And they all kind of agree that they do. And Christine says that she wants to spend all of her lives with her sister wives. So it was a moment of, like, pure staged getting along. If cameras weren't around, part of me wonders if they would have all gone to go visit Mariah. I don't really know. I know they all are very close to her and they love her. So maybe it just seems like because the cameras are there, that's why they're all there together. So Mary actually says that she signed a lease for a new home for 1 year. Robin goes on to say she would never sign a 2-year lease or a 1-year lease because that's the situation she's found herself in right now. And she would only sign a 2-year lease at a minimum, which, by the way, 2-year leases are not easy to find. They can be a little bit more challenging when it comes to homes because sometimes homeowners will end up selling homes. You never really know with the market. But it seems, though, that Robin's needs for so many rooms, so many terms on the lease, I mean, all of those things could play a factor. Mary, being a little bit more flexible, was actually able to find a home a lot quicker. And because of that, she was placed in a situation where she was able to find a rental and Robin is not. Then they go on to say that, let's see, the wives toast and they love each other regardless of Kody. Okay. And then Kody then is back at home. So while the ladies are away in Chicago, Kody is back at home with the kids. He's making pizza with them, homemade. He's showing them how to, like, toss it up in the air. He admits that he doesn't think any of his kids were actually following the steps of having, living in plural, like, marriage. He said that as they were growing up, he just did not push religion on the family enough. And he said that all the kids have now leaned towards more of Christianity. And he says that, maybe he should have placed more of an emphasis on faith in the family, that they would want this lifestyle. But this actual message from Kody had me thinking, like, if he is living this lifestyle and that he is not being, like, strict with them about what their beliefs are, then how much is this actually about beliefs and for him? And how much is it just about ego for him? I find that the wives are a lot more sturdy and a lot more faithful than Kody is. Kody seems like he does this all just because he wants as many as possible, not necessarily because he believes it's true. Whereas, like, I totally get the sense that Mary, Christine, Robin, and Janelle kind of all buy into this idea that they have to do this in order to go to their celestial kingdom. Kody, on the other hand, is like, hey, the more the merrier because it makes me feel good, right? Anyways, he admits that because of that, his kids will probably leave the world and blah, blah, blah. So after that, the moms then go out to visit Mariah and Audrey. And then Mariah kind of opens up at this point and talks about what it was like to grow up in this world and realize that she was attracted to women. And she says that, she had an awakening at one point in time. And she says that about a year before she said anything to anyone, she realized that she liked Audrey. And she said that's what really made her open up her eyes about what was going on with her. And she even admitted during an interview that the very first date that she ever had, was with Audrey. Now, Audrey said she knew that she was the first woman, but she had no idea that she was the first ever date. And she said had she known that, she probably would have been a little bit more anxious about everything, but now that everything is fine. But Mariah actually talked about how they talk about their first date, and she said that she really wanted to hold Audrey's hand, and she said, like, they were toying around, and I thought it was actually a cute sort of story. These two have, like, a sweet relationship, and I'm actually, like, really happy for Mariah, seeing that she's finally at a place now where she has a partner that loves her and that they can have these open dialogues and discussions. As a supporter of all people, I thought that was a really tender moment. She also talked about how, in their relationship, she often will want to do something and Audrey will do it first. And so she said, I wanted to hold her hand, but then she came back and grabbed my hand. And Mariah said, Audrey always takes the initiative, but when it came to asking her to marry, of us getting engaged, I was the one to ask her. And Audrey's like, she wins. That's the best thing she could have done first. So that was sweet. Then let's see, they go to Kody, back to Arizona. Kody is going to teach the kids how to ride bikes. He's going to take Solomon and Truly out. And this is actually a part of the show where it really shows you just how incredibly disconnected he is to his children. Takes Truly outside, finds her bike, realizes that it's not in a good shape, goes back out, takes her out to get a bike. And Truly actually admits, she's 9 years old, that she hasn't ridden a bike in a very long time. And so as an incentive to get her back out riding, he says he takes her to buy a new bike. But when he's trying to teach her, he has very little patience and he doesn't really want to do this. And she's telling him I don't want to ride a bike. I shouldn't have to ride a bike. This is my choice. I don't want to do this. And, she's like, this is my, and he tells her you don't have a right to choose. And my the tingling on my neck went up. You don't have a right to choose. You're going to do this no matter what. You don't have a right to choose. There's some things that you can be, you're not going to choose. You can't choose that you have to eat. You have to eat, right? But riding a bike is not one of those things that a child has to do. I mean, if a child doesn't want to ride a bike, they don't have to ride a bike, right? There's plenty of ways that children can be active and do things without riding bikes. So I thought this was a really weird place for him to sort of put his foot down. He even laughs at her one point and says, there's no crying in baseball. And Truly, being extremely literal, is we're not playing baseball. And he's like, this is easier than baseball. And she goes inside and she's like, I'm trying my best. And Cody's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, seriously, you've got a little girl that is having a tough time, and instead of encouraging her, you're literally telling her that everything that she's doing isn't working and that she's not trying, and instead of all of that. And then he admits with as many kids as I have, there could be something underlying going on here, and I admit that I may not know, so I might have to talk to her mother about that, which I thought was a really weird thing to say. I need to talk to her mother about that. Imagine having so many different wives that you have to talk to your mother, and you're you can't classify in that moment which mother is the mother of that child. So then we go to back to Mariah's life in let's see. They go back to Chicago and they are talking about how they want to throw Mariah engagement party. So they're all out to lunch. And Mary says that she knows that Mariah is going to have a party with her sisters are going to throw her an engagement party. But she thought it would be a really good idea if she threw her a engagement party at her bed and breakfast. And Mariah is pretty reluctant to it at that time. She says she doesn't know if she wants to do that. Mary says that it would be great. It would have different people. It would be a different event. Audrey is literally all for it. She's like, I want as many parties apart as possible. Utah, Arizona, Vegas, take me anywhere. I'll do anything. But Mariah says that she doesn't want 2 parties, and she says that Audrey's throwing her under the bus. Eventually, Mariah comes around to it, but before doing that, they start talking about when they're going to get married. So apparently, Audrey wants to get married in August. She wants to get married in October, so they compromise and they get married in September. They're going to get married in September. They haven't figured out a year, though they think they will probably get married in 2022. Will give them time to finish college. And then they talk about, what their planning is for the future for their family. They do want to have children. Mary's they are talking about babies. I think this is great. And then Mary sort of reflects on how the whole situation went about when Mariah actually came out to her. And Mary said that she's really regrets all the way that she reacted and how she made it about her, about how she didn't understand. And she said that during that time, she was really glad that she had Janelle, Robin, and Christine to be there for her and give her a more proper reaction. And Mary says that she wishes she could change things about that. The couple actually talks about, what they will do, whether they want to adopt or, they do say that if they were to have a child naturally, it would be Audrey that would have them. Because Mariah says that she never wants to have a child of her own because she doesn't want to go through the pregnancy. And then Then they talk about, then Christine actually opens up how she says that she can't even believe that their faith even makes it an issue, and that she finds it really sad that the church doesn't accept them. And she says no matter what, they refuse to like not accept their children. They're going to accept them. And she said she feels absolutely nauseous thinking about the fact that like she wouldn't accept them being who they are. Mary then admits that their culture is not accepting, but they will accept her, and she's glad she's gotten to see Mariah become herself and find her person in Audrey. And then Mariah kind of opened up about growing up in this world and having to hide from her identity, and how, you know, for the longest time she really embraced her church, and she believed that she would become a sister wife because it would be easier for her to sort of hide and not have to deal with it while still being able to have relationships with women. But over time she realized that while, you know, she really liked the way that she grew up, it was also very hurtful because she couldn't be who she wanted to be. She said that when she told her father, he was super, super supportive. And she said that her dad had a conversation with God years ago, and God told her, "You love, I judge." And so he said that he would always support her no matter what. She said that, you know, it's really hard for her still to find a place where she feels comfortable because the church has not been supportive at all. So it sounds like she has been basically like shunned from the church, but she said that her family is still extremely supportive of her. Then we have Kody back at, we're back in Arizona. Kody says that they need to buy a house. There's nothing on the market to rent. He says that the time is up now, that Robin is being very stubborn. He wishes that she would just come around. The kids have to, they make they do a bonfire and eat on the Coyote Pass property. The kids are all having fun. Kody talks about how this would have been why he wanted to do the one house idea, because then the kids would all be together. Aurora talks about how she's still feeling a little bit stressed out about having to move, and she's starting to twitch and feel a little anxiety. He says that he wants all the kids together. He wants them to be together, and he really wishes that the wives wouldn't have put that idea to rest, because he wants the kids to have a level of camaraderie. And the kids admit that they would really love to live on Coyote Pass, and many of them would actually love to live together. But I don't think said that in front of them. Anyways, then they're back in Chicago. They go to an event where they throw some things at some targets. I'm not going to use the word. And then Mary sees that Audrey and Mariah are both very competitive and athletic. And Audrey talks about how she played football in high school, which is amazing. She said she was absolutely terrible, but she was the kicker, and then she was also on the line, but she didn't really know how to do anything. But she said she had her own fan base, and she really enjoyed it, even though she was super bad. And then when they're back to lunch after they do the event, Robin apologizes to everyone for being so down. She says that she's been very stressed out, and she has a lot of things going on in her life. She also says that during her event with the ladies, she got a text message from Aurora, who was dealing with stuff at home, that made her have to talk her through and sort of calm her down. And then at the end of everything, Christine wants to do another toast, and then Mary jokes that apparently Christine likes to do toasts so much because she can't make real toast. And then Christine laughs and says, "I make toast in the oven because we only had a two slot toaster, and people always get, bad things happen with toasters." And that was the end of the episode. And then the wives basically admit that they get along better when Kody is not around, and that Kody is the fly that creates a lot of issues. So overall, there wasn't as much drama this time because Kody wasn't there. They were sort of all around one common interest of being with Mariah. It's nice to see them actually get along and have a common interest and be more of a community. But it's also me going, I don't know what I believe, whether or not this is true. I am absolutely happy for Mariah that she has found her person, and I thought it was a good show to get away from the house idea. I thought it was also a good way to sort of talk about what's going on with Mariah, where she's at, and really just get her point of view of being so, different compared to what her culture wants. So what are your thoughts about this week's episode? Were you into it? Were you not into it? Gail says that she did not like the way that he made her daughter ride the bike. Yes, I will definitely say that my impression of this episode was that Kody is very out of touch with his children. He clearly does not know what his kids like or dislike. The fact that he has so many children, 18, would make it difficult for him to do that, especially, and then there's 4 different wives, 4 different households. It would make it impossible. My husband and I were watching it together, and we kind of were laughing because, not like in a funny way, but kind of like an ironic way, that like when he was referring to Christine as the mother, it was almost like calling it like the baby mom. Like, you're a couple that is split up. Like, well, I'll have to talk to her mother about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you have an issue and you're in a relationship with them, be like, oh, me and Christine need to talk about it. We need to work through this. We'll figure out what's best for Truly. But in this case, he's like, we need to talk to her mother. And a lot of times I feel like the relationships that he has with most of the wives have left the romantic phase, and that he's like not at all in that with any of them. And they're all just like couples that are no longer like couples, and they're all just like basically friends that don't really like each other. And it was nice to see them supporting, Robin and Mariah and Audrey. So what were your favorites with last night's episode? Tell me in the comments below. I'll be back later with more. Bye, guys.